I'm Vin.
I'm Sori.
This is Badflower, and the name of the song is 30.
Man of X. This is for Man of X, and Man of X also said that it's important to watch the videos.
Yep. Ooh, that's important because this actually transitions into a lot of things. Okay, for timely topical political commentary, you can end us up in Middle America with Vin and Sori. Now, I hope that this song doesn't get blocked. Here's what happens. You'll notice with other reaction channels, like, share, comment, subscribe to other reaction channels, by the way, that every so often they will cut in the middle of the song, they'll stop the song, they'll start it up again. There's a very intelligent reason for why they do that. Here's the thing. You probably saw a horrible Joe Biden commercial or a horrible Trump commercial before you saw this wonderful video of yours truly and hers truly. And what happens in those situations is that Google gets a cut and you get a cut. Well, when you play the song all the way through, Google sends you a nifty, very friendly message that basically says, hey man, the record label knows that you listen to their songs, so now they're going to take your cut. And we're going to take ours and have a great day. So, once we figure that out, we try to, like, you know,
maneuver things around.
But by that time it was 5,000 deep. People like, nope. That's a feature of your guys' channel. You can't.
The audience had too much influence over the channel to change that.
It's true. It really is. Okay, so one of my friends from the village, actually, shout out to the big homie Jerry, said, why don't you start up a Patreon? And I was like, oh, yeah, whatever. So $1 at the gate gets you in to help us offset the cost of the copyright stuff. And then after that, you know, you can do a $5 tier. There's, you know, Sori and I are in a band. I think all my guitar stuff is done. So we're waiting on the other guitarist, our crazy bassist who's literally a legend, and then we've got the big homie. So anyway, so that is coming, right? So that's on the $5 tier. You can hear the first 40 seconds of that song. When we release the video, there's going to be a watch party, that type of thing. So all that's on Patreon. You pull your points together, and that determines what songs we listen to. Now, if you're a filthy capitalist like Sori and you want to, you know, use your capital and your privilege to cut in front of everybody, then $125 at the gate gets you that. You do that 3 times, and then you get down to the $75 rate, which is what the big homie did now. So without further ado, hopefully this doesn't get blocked, because when we played all the way through, if it's the official video, sometimes the record label will straight block it.
If that happens, follow the link in the description so you can watch along with us.
Yep.
Here we go.
Okay. It's going to light it perfectly.
I know how to light candles.
Full screen, full screen.
Ready?
All right, are we gonna sing this thing?
I'm not singing. I think it's really.
I'm not singing.
Somebody start it.
1, 2, 3.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy
birthday to you. It's Josh. It's Josh. Happy birthday, dear Josh. That's a big happy birthday to you.
Doesn't look very happy.
On Channel 4 and Scooby-Doo on Channel 5. You're old. 6, 7. You got wax on the camera. Wax all over.
I'm nervous, so nervous. I overeat, I lack purpose, and I'm only scratching the surface. And I'm not shelved, cause sex sells. But how long till I'm canceled? This is 30, fucking 30. I'm still here, I'm still dirty. I made it, I'm a flower. I don't sleep, I don't shower. I masturbate twice every hour. And my band's sick, cause my head's sick. I get drunk and I'm reckless. Stalk my Twitter, stand my bullshit. This is 30, something is wrong with me! So raise up your glasses to going out of fashion, to acronyms, sex cams, and social older, I got wrinkles, I still complain and get pimples. I miss when everything was simple. The sex passed too fast. I ask, how long did your ex last? I'm fucking worthless, I'm unhappy. This is 30. You treat me like a baby. Forgive me when I'm wrong. You love me when I'm crazy. I'm alright, but I hate that song. You treat me like a baby. Forgive me when I'm wrong. You love me when I'm crazy. You know my only wish is for a better life. Don't treat me like a baby and fight me when I'm wrong and smack me when I'm crazy. I'm alright, but I hate that song.
Oh boy. Okay.
So 30 is about him not being happy about turning 30.
Yep.
That's so interesting.
Why?
Well, I remember I was also upset when I turned 30.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I felt like I hadn't done anything with my life.
Oh, you and your...
You know, well, look, I mean, when you have the narrative that I grew up with, I mean, there's a lot of, so, I'm not going to get all the details, but basically, I was basically a miracle baby. You know, subglottic stenosis, tracheotomy, all that, and my mom and dad took me to the preacher because they both decided I wasn't going to get the trach, because they didn't want me, you know, whatever, and they basically decided, you know, to take me to the church, and then the pastor prayed over me and basically said, you know, hey, Lord, if you can work, take him. But you need to heal him, you know. So they, you know, take me to the doctor the next day. And the doctor's like,
It was basically like telling God, look, either take him to be with you or fix him, because we're not doing that.
yeah. So, you know,
Risky.
so I grew up with that story, you know, and they were like, well, you know, he's okay, that's okay, but you know, he's gonna have to have a surgery for hernia, and then he's gonna cataract, he'll never be able to see properly, and he'll never have kids. And out of my two brothers, I'm the only one that don't have prescription glasses, and I have the most kids, and you know. So then I grew up from both of my parents, you know, because they got divorced when I was a baby, but my dad told me that story, so he's like, look, man, you're here for a real reason. God wouldn't have spared you if you weren't going to do something to change the world. And then, you know, my mom, same thing. Mm-hmm. And, you know, there were times when it helped me, like, you know, when I was in the worst mental health condition of my life, and I was, you know, in the hospital, suicide attempt, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, like, that was always like, my mom would always be like, nothing's going to happen to you because you haven't done what you're supposed to do. You know? She's like, please, you know, I'm sure she was worried.
She was right, though.
you know, so So when I hit 30, I was like, "Hell, I haven't done a damn thing with my life. You know, I was on the road actually, coming back from Houston on my 30th birthday. So I just finished up an assignment in Houston.
But you had done nothing.
Well, when I was around those guys, like they didn't like, you know, nobody. It wasn't like a big deal because you're with other dudes, you know what I'm saying? So, but yeah, so I remember feeling like that. I remember feeling like, man, I haven't accomplished anything in my life. So, you know, that was a very, very difficult birthday for me because I'm like, damn, 30 passed me by. I've done nothing. Of course, you know, Jesus started his stuff at 30. Like,
Yeah.
but he wasn't a miracle baby. If somebody would have but see, I never talked about like those types of insecurities anyway. So if somebody would have, you know, pulled me aside and said, "Hey, relax," I wouldn't have listened to them. But I really feel like for a person with as, you know, very little education, like I've accomplished a lot because of that fear. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Like I've done things that I know for a fact everybody around me hasn't even come close to doing. Mm-hmm. You know, but just at the time it's very hard to see that stuff. So yeah, that was always a problem for me. But you know, now it's a pretty cool feeling. Like I don't believe I'm done by any means yet on this planet. But I can't look back at things and go, okay, like did something pretty unique there that was, you know, not something that normal, you know, whatever. Yeah. And you've done things over here. I'm like, okay, like feel like I've justified for now my existence on the planet. Like that was kind of my mindset. You know what I mean? So so yeah. So that's what I was feeling in this song. And the other thing I was feeling in this song is like it's hilarious the amount of privilege that we have. Like in the Western world, the quote-unquote midlife crisis is one of the clearest indicators of modern Western privilege. So I got this pulled up here. So I put average life expectancy in the Middle Ages, okay? Mm-hmm. In the Middle Ages, the average lifespan of males born in land-holding families in England was 31 years.
Oh my gosh!
The biggest danger was surviving childhood. Once children reached the age of 10, their life expectancy was 32 years.
Oh my gosh.
For those who survived to 25, the remaining life expectancy was 23 years. So like these people were not having midlife crises at 40. They were dead.
Wow, that's crazy.
They were dead. You know, so it's just one of those things where it's like, and I'm not like necessarily criticizing him per se. I'm just saying for people that do have that age-based anxiety, you know, just think about it from the context of the world. And I'm sure life expectancies in starving countries and things like that are much lower, and you know, you fall victim to the plague and all this stuff. But so like I'm not making fun of it in any means. It's just one of those things where it's like, you know, if you've been around the world and seen people and people just like, yeah, you know, 40, dead at 40, whatever, it's like, I mean, he had a good life. It's like, you know what I mean? But our mindset is, you know,
oh my gosh, yeah.
You know, you want to live into your 80s. I just saw one of the people from Avengers, Game of Thrones just died. She's 82 years old. I'm like, it's 82, bro. Like, 82. You know, but so it was a very, very interesting song. And, you know, he looked genuinely, this guy's a good guy.
No,
good
I'm not happy about it. Yeah, I was scrolling through Facebook and there's this girl on there and she posts, she's like, honest to goodness, she's like, 30 sounds so terrifying. Like turning 30.
Who was that? C?
No, it's somebody you don't know.
Oh.
And so I messaged, I'm like, it's not that bad. You know? But I remember being young and, you know, thinking that, you know, when somebody was in their 20s that they were old. You know, and then I hit my 20s and then it's like, wow, look, it's 30s or 40s. You know, now I'm like, 50s. You know, because I'm 35, so I'm like, I'm not looking forward to being in my 50s. But then I'm sure once you hit your 50s, you're like, well, I mean, 70s.
But yeah,
I mean, I think that there is, when he's explaining his life, it does kind of sound like, I mean, he needs to grow up a little bit.
well,
Like, this could sound like, it had the energy of a teenage boy, and that's what made me laugh about it, you know what I mean? Like,
well, I think that's one of the points of the song, right?
Yeah.
Is he's trying to get back to that adolescence period. You know, like, so the whole tenor and energy of the song, like, the whole tenor of the song was like adolescent. I think he did that on purpose because that's what he wants. Yeah, like that Washer quote when he was talking about like adolescence is something that we invented, you know, because back in the day, people at 14, 15 years old were, you know, doing far more. I mean, they were considered adults. Like, and it's true in the Middle East too. Like, you know, I was watching, you know, it was a required whatever, and like these kids are 14, 15 years old, and they're kitted out. They got Kalashnikov, AK-47s, and they're, you know, and nobody thinks it's like, you know, like Muhammad when he was going to jihad. Like, if you had pubic hair, like, you could fight. That's all you needed to do. Like, so just like,
jeez.
the mindset is, and I'm using a extreme example, but there is no like, oh, I'm a 14-year-old. I'm gonna, and obviously, you know, life expectancy in medieval Arabia, I'm sure, was not 80, 90 either. You know what I'm saying? So,
right.
I mean, Muhammad died at 63. So, but that's a completely separate circumstance. We'll talk about that another time. But like, so now that we've got these extended periods of life, then we add these different epics of a person's development, adolescence being one of them, where we don't expect anything from teenage boys. We don't expect them to do anything. I was reading a book one time, way back in the day, about this topic, and like the guy was talking about this kid who was 12 or 13 years old, and he was the captain of a ship. Like, the dad made him the captain in his stead. And of course, one of the dudes tried to test him because he's 13, and he took his revolver and he said, "You're going down the deck or whatever for timeout or whatever," like that. And he said, "If you stick your head out of this thing, I'm gonna blow you away." This 13-year-old kid, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And like, holy hell, after that, people was like, okay, that's the captain, okay. Like, so it's just it's a very strange thing about, you know, because like when I look at Chicago, I'm like, man, these kids are growing up too fast. Right? Like, you're 13, you're 14, you shouldn't be seeing people killed, and you shouldn't be dwelling on your mortality like that, and you shouldn't be going to Walmart looking all over the place on a swivel, because... So I want that sort of reckless, dumb adolescence for these kids in Chicago, because the thing about it is like, they're doing. These kids are so young. One of them got killed when he was 14, 15 years old. I think Tuca was 16, and like, you're not even fully developed yet. So like, they don't get to be. You know, he says it. I'm reckless. I don't have purpose or whatever. Like. My thing is, if these guys got to 30 and 35, like, they'd be like, oh, well.
I know,
You know, like, there were so many things that were so important to me to do as far as school goes, and as far as interacting with people and girls and dudes and violence, like, and then you hit, like, 25, 30. Being 30, like, you really are, it's important. It's an important marker, because you really start to question. Really, for the first time, you really start questioning yourself as far as like, why was this so important to me? And when you start to accumulate things and you start to go through certain cycles when you're younger, you think, oh my God, when you get hit with a challenge when you're young, it's the end of the world. And then by the time you're 30, you know, I was telling somebody this one time, they're like a brand new Christian, and they were like 17 or something like that. And just all this craziness was happening in their life, which is what happens in the downtown area. I just pulled her aside and said, look, you gotta have a few episodes with you and God where you were in a bad situation and it looked impossible and crazy, and wouldn't you know it, God pulled you through. Like, you have to have a couple of those to look back on.
Absolutely.
So that when you run into it again, you can go, oh, okay, I know this is a fire drill, I understand what's happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, if we did a fire drill here, like Orion would freak, he'd lose it, because it's would make a big show of it and leave the house and like, But the more and more
Orion's a year and a half.
he would see it, he'd be like, oh, okay, I know what to do here. I know what's going on here. It's gonna be all right. Like, we're gonna stick it out. You're gonna be okay. And so that's one of the advantages of being 30 is that you've got an accumulated set of episodes where the world looked like it was ending, but it really didn't. Whether it's political or whatever. Like, for example, there's all this thing about the economy and housing crisis and all this. And it's like, I'm like, yeah, we went through that in 2008. And you know what? Everybody's, I'm alive. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, everybody's alive. All my kids were good. Like, I understand. Like, I get it, but I've already had that episode. I've already watched that episode.
Yeah, but the fact that you can do that means that you were maturing all along to be able to use those past circumstances for you to say, whatever.
Right.
But some people are not like that. Like, some people, they just stay in the adolescence. It's like they're turning 30 and they're freaking out about turning 30, and it's like they're unprepared for 30 because they haven't allowed their past to mold them into the type of person that could be a 30-year-old. And they still want to, like, when you hear his song and you hear the different stuff that's important to him at this point, it's like, oh my gosh, like, you're not past that?
Yeah. I'll pretend I'm 23, you know what I mean? Like, I would never want to be 23 again. I would never want to do that again. Like, a lot of times, like, I think about even 5-6 years ago, I wouldn't want to be. I love where I'm at now. It's like Tom Brady was talking. Tom Brady's 43. Like, he's like, man, I know every single defensive scheme there is out there. I line up. I know exactly what's going to happen. He's like, I have the answers to all of the tests. Like, he's not like, oh, I'm 40, but I'm gonna like work through it. He's like, no, this is great. And so generations are different, right? Like, so like in the Bible, it's like you shall stand in the presence of the aged and fear the face of an old man, which basically means you need to honor the elderly. And so there are certain cultures in which the oldest person is the most valued person because she's the oracle, or she's the, or he's the sage with the wisdom. And how the longer you age, the more the community believed that what you had to say was the right answer versus an inexperienced person. But our culture's flipped. Our culture celebrates youth. And, our culture has people in their 70s, 60s, and 70s getting plastic surgery, getting breast augmentations at 65, and rocking clothes that, 20-somethings are wearing because Americans, or the Western world, worships youth.
Yeah.
And obviously, if you get philosophical about that, then, that's just everybody's fear of death. And everybody's trying to deal with the fear of death. And the 30 mark, gives him the understanding, subliminally speaking, that he's going to die, and so he wants to go back to his 20s. That's a standard.
I think that that's part of it, but I think that like, let's say you say the woman that's having all that work done, or she's wearing clothes younger than her, and she's trying to always look like she's in her 20s when she's really in her 60s. I think that there's part of what you were saying, but I think also that because we don't actually realize where people's real value comes from. Especially a woman can find or feel that her value comes in the way that people view her, whether she's attractive, is she still young, you know what I mean? And if people are kind of drawn to her and attracted to her, and we have this concept that youth is what is, because we do worship youth. So I think that
it's objectively true that youthful people are more beautiful than older people. That's just an objectively true if you're going with Aquinas' understanding of beauty, which I do, which is beauty is about symmetry and yada yada yada. But that theory is a like subliminal, like really deep down subliminal type of understanding of the human nature and why people go through midlife crises. Is that they're afraid of dying, which of course some of these guys take it too far. They say all art, all entertainment has to do with distracting you from your fear of death. So like there are some philosophical schools of thought where people are obsessed, like one of the main things that separates us from the animal kingdom is not the image of God, but the understanding that we are going to die in the future. So, there's a very interesting Peterson talk on that when he's talking about Adam and Eve in the garden and all that. The day you eat, you will surely die or whatever. And so like, there's the philosophical aspect, and it's kind of interesting because he talks about, I'm nervous, I overeat, and I lack purpose. And to put anxiety on top of overeating and to root it in the lacking of purpose, the existential crisis that happens to people who have not been given the transcendent aspect of human nature. It looks to me like he's just a pure, the worldview he's given was purely material, and just atoms and molecules. That's the world he's given. And so he lacks purpose because he hasn't been given transcendent meaning to his life.
Yeah.
So it's going to cause anxiety, and then it really causes you fear when you start contemplating your own demise. Because it's like, I wasn't here for any reason, and I'm just going to die and float off, and it'll be like I was never here, and the universe is going to, go into heat death, and blah, 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 and it creates all this, like, why am I here? What have I done? Why is any of this important? And people always say, nihilism is not necessarily a logical consequence of, whatever. But tell that to Bertrand Russell. Like, nihilism, here's what I'll say. I will say this because I have experience with a lot of new atheists, that many of them are very, very careful to construct as the sages put it, the fiction of purpose. Because the reason the term fiction of purpose is used is because the guy basically saying, there's no ultimate objective purpose to anything. But if you write a story in your own mind about your own purpose or the purpose of your child or the value of your child, then you can live in that world that you create in your own mind. And so, people don't think through like the harmful ramifications of that. Of course, when you're in your teens or your 20s, you don't have to, but or I've seen people who are in their teens and their 20s have that ideology and then get put in situations where they were facing their own mortality, and then they had these types of anxieties. So it's a real, this song is deceptively deep. Because it looks like it's just a kid just jumping, oh, he's in a trampoline, blah, 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 he's complaining about being treated like a baby, but he wants to go back to his adolescence. But I could talk about this song for like 5 hours, like literally, because especially I'm nervous, I overeat, I lack purpose. We could talk about that for quite some time. And I'm not saying that, like I said, whether a person subscribes to my particular faith tradition or not, doesn't mean that they can't, create for themselves their own purpose. This is a 9.2 for me.
It's actually a 9.8 for me. I liked it. It was fun sounding, and also I think the message is important.
I loved his energy on the stage.
Yeah,
he
me
was
too.
rocking. I was like, bro, it's not even that heavy. But he was rocking. You see in the beginning, he said he lacked purpose, and there was like that Krishna guy.
Yes.
At the beginning, Hare Krishna, Haribo! Shout out to the big homie Krishna. It's your demonic self.
Oh my gosh.
Vin out.
Sorry out.
Gone. See, the little blue light for you, bro. Hey, Krishna's blue. Good day.
So get off your asses and take down the masses. Socialist, fascist, the world is all plastic. Cause everyone thinks it, but they don't know shit about shit. You treat me like a baby. Forgive me when I'm wrong. You love me when I'm crazy. I'm alright, but I hate that You know my only wish is for a better life. Don't treat me like a baby, and fight me when I'm wrong. Please the crowd and stop me when I'm crazy. I'm alright, but I hate that song.
See, you light it perfectly. You don't even know.
I know how to light candles.
I wish people did this for my birthday.
Alright, ready?
All right, are we gonna sing this thing?
I'm not singing. I think it's really sweet you're having your birthday. Somebody start it.
2, 3.
Wait.
Happy birthday to you.
You smell like
birthday to you. It's Josh. It's Josh. Happy birthday, dear Josh. That's a vegan cake. Happy birthday to you. Many more on Channel 4 and Scooby Doo on
Channel 5.
Hey.
You're old. 6, 7.
I'm nervous, so nervous. I overeat, I lack purpose, and I'm only scratching